Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'll be working on this Australian umbrella tree, slowly transitioning it from a houseplant to a nice bonsai. This Schefflera is very old. It started out as a houseplant 26 years ago, and I've slowly been converting it into a bonsai. This year it got a lot of aerial roots growing off it, kind of midsummer, and that's why I'm working on it today. I want to preserve all those aerial roots hanging down, getting them to drop down into the soil. So I need a bigger pot so those aerial roots have room to hit the soil. And it'll be sort of like a curtain fig. If you've ever seen a curtain fig, that the tree kind of is on a slant, and then the aerial roots grow down and they create almost a curtain of aerial roots. I'll show you some pictures of that. Here's a look at all the aerial roots growing down from the tree. They're really awesome, all hanging down. So I want to make sure they get down into the soil so they root. And these ones started out the exact same way, all these kind of thick twisting aerial roots here. They were just thin little aerial roots, and I built up some soil around the base of them, some tin foil, had them guided down into the soil, and they thickened up over the years, and they look really good now. I had this tree in the greenhouse the one summer, and it got too hot in the greenhouse, and it killed off the entire upper section of the tree. You can see it's just dead. However, everything that was in the shade down here survived, and it has 5 branches now that reach up towards the sky like a hand. And it's kind of a cool looking tree. It doesn't look like much right now because it's all covered in these giant leaves. But I'm going to start today by defoliating the tree, and then you'll actually see what structure is there, and I can see what aerial roots are there and get them going down into the soil. I'm going to be pruning and repotting the tree today. It needs a larger pot, so I've got room for all these aerial roots to grow down into the soil line, creating that kind of curtain fig style to the tree. I checked my old videos, so this tree hasn't been repotted in 7 years. May of 2015 was the last time it was root pruned and potted. That's a long time ago. But in the meantime, it recovered from the repotting, and then it got all that scorch on the top that killed the whole top of the tree. So I was waiting for it to recover from that operation, and then I think time just got away on me. It's way overdue for repotting. I'm sure that pot is just absolutely root bound. That's probably one of the reasons it started growing the aerial roots so much this year, is the soil here. As soon as you water it, it just kind of dries out because there's so many roots in that pot. It just sucks it up, and then it goes dry, and then it needs more moisture. So it drops all these aerial roots. So I'm going to start today by defoliating the tree. So let's begin right now. At the moment, this tree doesn't look like much. It just looks like a houseplant. But I think in the future it'll become one of my better trees. It has a very unique structure going. When I get those aerial roots planted and growing and thickening up, I think it's really going to be an amazing tree 5-10 years down the road. So I'll begin with the defoliation. There's a lot of leaves here that are going yellow or about to drop off anyway, and that's from the cold of fall. The last time I pruned this tree, I cut these vertical fingers off, and you can see on this one I have two really strong branches and maybe 2 more weaker ones. So I think after the repotting, I think it'll strengthen the whole tree up, and I'll get more branching developing. I think this tree was just extremely root bound. Ah, there's all those aerial roots. Fantastic. It's nice to see them all. One more leaf. I think that's got it. Yep. So you can see those fingers reaching up. It's a pretty cool looking tree. Here's a look at the tree now. So here's all these aerial roots that I've got to get growing into the soil so they thicken up like these roots over here. You can see them all. Yeah, it's a really cool tree. I really like it. Here's a shot of what used to be the main trunk of the tree. So that all died off. The sun hit it, cooked it, and it died. So everything in the shade here was still alive, luckily. So yeah, it's rotting away a bit at the base here. It used to kind of extend down into the soil, but that's okay. I think, you know, if this rots away totally, I'll still have this living part. It'll have that cavity where the original trunk went. I think it'll look really cool. So yeah, I don't care if this really rots away or not. I'm going to rotate their tree around and I'm going to study all the different views of the tree. There may be a better front. You've always got to be reevaluating your trees. So here I go. That's the current front. Coming around to the right-hand side. Coming around to the back now, which is interesting. You can see all the branch structure from the back. Coming around to the left-hand side. And back to the current front. So I'm studying all the different views of this tree. The front is quite nice, the current front. It shows the slant style of the tree quite nicely. It doesn't really show these roots to their best. Around here, this is a nice front, I think, here. All the branches come forward. The slant of the trunk kind of integrates more with the aerial roots. I think somewhere around here is actually a better front for the tree. Yeah, I would say looking in right here, right on the corner, I think that's a really nice front for the tree. It really shows these aerial roots off. It flows down into the soil nicely, shows all the branch structure off really nicely. It puts the deadwood in the back, but I don't think that deadwood is going to last forever anyway. I think you'll slowly see that decompose over the years and it'll disappear, and you know, I'll be left with the nice living part of the tree. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, is that as the front of the tree. I kind of like it. Yeah, I think this view is interesting, but I don't think it's the best view. And it could change again, who knows. So this pot, it was a used pot. It has a little chip out of it here. That's why I got it quite cheaply. But it's done a fantastic job. A home for this tree over the last 7 years. This is the pot I chose for the tree. It's an $80 pot. It was from Chris Hendry's place. It's a Tokonomi pot. Very good quality. And you can tell I like the tree because it's going into a really nice pot. I think it's time. I think this tree's really going to take off over the next, couple of years. I think it'll really turn into something really cool. So I've got to pick the front of the pot. Now, I was checking the glaze, see if it covers up the feet. It's a little high here, the glaze. On this side, well, it's a little high this side too, but it's not bad. I noticed the pot, the lip is a little warped here. I don't know if you can see that, but if I lay the pot flat on the table, both these edges sit up a little. I think this side's the better side. Yeah, so this side, the lip droops just a little bit. has a little pinhole in the glaze there. But I do like this side better. It's the better side of the pot. The other side, the lip kind of warps a bit. So that's what it's going to go in. It's quite a large pot for this tree. The tree's going to look very small at first, but I think it'll grow quickly, especially with all this room for the roots to grow. When all those new aerial roots strike the soil and start thickening up, the tree's going to get an enormous canopy on it. I think this pot will suit the tree really well in a few years. The temperature in the greenhouse today is 14 degrees Celsius, so it's getting close to room temperatures. It's really nice in here. All right, step one is to get the tree out of the pot. So I don't know, I doubt it'll just lift out. If I can grab it somewhere without disturbing the aerial roots. No, it feels pretty tight in the pot. And this pot has a slight lip, so I'm going to have to run my blade around it. Yeah, I can feel it's packed in really tightly. I do like the color of this pot. It kind of matches the trunk almost exactly. But I think the white will look quite nice too, because it is quite bright, especially when it's in midsummer. It kind of gets bleached a bit. And as they get older, they kind of get almost a gray silvery trunk on them. Okay, I'm going to try and get it out of the pot now. It seems like it's loose. It seems like it's coming. Come on. Here it comes. All right. Onto the tray it goes. And I'll put this pot away, and it can be used to start another tree or develop another tree in the future. All right, it's time to start working on the roots. So I'll start by combing them out. The soil is quite dry, so that's probably good for this repotting. So I would say it's not too root bound. You know, I'm combing it. It's not like packed in there like, you know, roots upon roots upon roots. It's at a reasonable level, so that's good. Yeah, there's a lot of spaces in here that have good loose soil. So I don't think it was severely root bound, which is amazing. Now there will be a drainage screen. Oh, look at all the roots on the bottom. Yeah, there's a drainage screen there. There's another one here. There they are. So there's one drainage screen out, and I'll try and get this one out too. There it is. Okay, those are out. Yeah, this soil is very dry. So the roots on a Schefflera, they can go quite wild because they grow aerial roots. So you've got again, it's a balance between wild roots and nice radial roots. And somewhere in the middle looks really natural. You don't want them, you know, perfectly arranged, or it might look too artificial. But you don't want them so wild that it just looks like, well, no one ever looked at the roots or cared about the roots. It doesn't look very miniature if they're all just like a tangled mess. You've still got to, you know, have that root structure where it comes down, subdivides, ramifies all your roots, just like the top of your tree. You've got to get a beautiful root structure going to create something special. Otherwise it just looks like a houseplant. So the soil was nice and moist underneath the tree here, so that's good. Just wasn't reaching all the way down into the bottom of the pot. I think it needed more soaking. All right, I think I've got most of the soil out of the root base, so I can begin the root pruning. I didn't have to do a lot of root pruning on this tree. I just took one thick root off that was kind of curling around underneath. A bit of trimming of some of the bottom roots. There were a few surface roots that I took off that were kind of growing a bad direction. But not a lot of root work on this at all. It's just basically combed it out, did a bit of pruning, and it's ready to pot up now. I've got my drainage screens in the pot, so I'll put a base layer of soil in. Here I go. Now I'll have to see how high the tree sits in the pot. So I think the new front was somewhere over here. We want it, so all these aerial roots go into the soil. I think I've got to twist the front around a bit more. More like about there, I think. It can be raised up a little bit in the pot. It's a little low, so I'll build up a mound of soil and position the tree. All right. Quite a mound of soil, so now I can put the tree on top. So yeah, the front view's got to be there. I'm looking at the front of the pot. I've got lots of room for these aerial roots to drop down. I've got to bring it forward a little bit to about there. Make sure, you know, these are vertical. The height in the soil is pretty good. I'm looking at the tree from the front view now. I kind of like it. It's that trunk really looks massive, the way it kind of tapers up with those aerial roots and everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the branch structure. The dead wood isn't so visible, but as I said, that will eventually rot away. I don't want to preserve it either. I could just rotate it just a little bit. Kind of fill in this gap here. Does it look like it's coming too far forward in the pot? I'd have to do a bit of root pruning at the back if I want to push the tree back in the pot more. I'll show you that. There's a look from above, so you can see that root at the back there. Right here is kind of very close to the edge of the pot. So if I wanted to move the tree back further, I'd have to do a bit of root pruning there. I think I will. I think I'll try and get the tree pushed back a bit more. There it is from a little higher of an angle. I think that looks pretty balanced. I'll just lower the camera down now. There's a look at the tree. Yeah, I like that. Cool tree. The pot doesn't look that big for it. It's amazing. It suits it, I think. Lots of room for the roots to grow. Okay, I'll get it filled in with soil, get the tree watered, and then we'll work on those aerial roots. This pot holds a lot of soil. Okay, now I'll work all that soil into the roots. So just kind of making sure it's making good contact. There's no air pockets. All right, that's getting pretty good. I better get the tree watered. All right, here I go with the water. This water is from the plant room, so it's nice and warm, or reasonably warm. So here I go. It is going to like this new pot, new soil. And again, I'll water it several times the first day to make sure all those soil particles have soaked up all the water. The soil tends to dry out a little faster than normal at first. There, it's coming out the drainage holes now. So that's good for the water. I'll come back later, water it thoroughly again. Just keep repeating that a couple of times, maybe 3 times today. Make sure all those wood chips are all soaked with water. I'm looking at the overall planting now. I think it's looking pretty cool. An amazing transformation, I think, for this tree. It's really showing off its best features, that's for sure. Now I've got to make sure all these roots, these aerial roots, make it to the soil. So I've got to build up a layer of soil underneath the tree so they continue to grow down, or put pots underneath or something. I don't want to lose all those aerial roots. They'll dry up if I don't do something soon. There's a lot of techniques you can use to preserve your aerial roots and keep them growing. Some people use a large drinking straw. They slit the straw down the middle, put it around the aerial root so the aerial root grows down the straw, guided by the straw. It gets them really straight if that's what you're after. They're a little hard to remove. Once the root starts growing, they're hard to get off without breaking the root or damaging the root. So that's, there's pros and cons to everything. You can use tin foil. You can build up tin foil around the roots, fill it with soil or sphagnum moss. That works really well also. I'm going to try a yogurt container, or maybe several of them. Turn it upside down, put a hole in the top, fill it with soil, put the roots in, and they'll grow down into the pot eventually. The major roots I want to survive are these ones coming off of these front branches. They're really important. The ones coming down by the trunk there, they're important too, but not so much. They're detail roots that'll make the trunk look more intricate and braided and more miniature. The ones up here, kind of up in these branches, they're not so important. Again, they're, I don't want to lose any of them, but they're kind of bonus roots. If I can get these ones to grow down into the soil, it would just add to that banyan style, all these aerial roots. So I'm going to start with the ones over on this side, getting them down into soil in the yogurt container. All right, the first step is to determine the height. It's a little bit high. You can see the roots. I need it a little bit less in height. So I'm going to cut off this bottom lip here, reducing the height of the container. Like that, so that's a better height. Now I'll cut out the top. On my last aerial root experiment where I fused that cutting onto the ficus, I used tin foil and bonsai soil, and that worked really well. I just don't have any tin foil at the moment. Okay, so now that I can get all these aerial roots into the yogurt container. Now, it might still be a little high here. There's another root back here I've got to get in. Okay, I've got to take just a little bit off the bottom here. Just where so it clears these roots here. Okay, let me get them all back in again. All these aerial roots into the container. Like that. That fits nicely now. Now, is that one going to stay in? Sure it will. Okay, now these ones in here, I can pack sphagnum moss in here. The tree's going to look terrible after all this is done. You won't even recognize it as a bonsai, but it will be exposed someday. Actually, probably, not that long. It only takes a year or maybe two to get these aerial roots firmly established. Okay, so I've got to fill this with bonsai soil. So here I go. that one root. There, see, it's in the soil now. So these roots, even if they grow kind of crooked, you can always reposition them later on, you know, when you go to repot it again. The important thing is to get them there. Okay, I've got to water that. Here I go with the water. Get all that soil soaked in there. That's good. I'm going to try a yogurt container to get these roots to grow down into the soil also. They're kind of important to come down from this branch. I've got the top cut out of this one, but I need to lower it down. It's too high, so I need to take off about that much, a couple of centimeters. So I'll do that. I think there. So what I think here, I'm going to have to cut out one side of the container to slip it up against the tree. Might be a little tricky, but I'll try it. Here I go. So now, I think I can put this kind of up against the tree like that. Yeah. And then I can fill it in with soil. And I have to get these roots into the container here like that. Yeah, that's pretty good there. That'll get all those roots into the soil. Okay, so I'll fill that up with soil. Like that. And I better give that a water too. Okay. So that's got the major ones that are really important to the look of the tree. Now the detail ones in here, I've got to do something about those also. So I'm thinking I can put this plastic piece back here and just fill that cavity up with soil. I think that'll work. Let's see if I can fill that with soil. Well, it might be a little tricky. Well, that's kind of working. It's got it up onto the roots. I can put some in. I may need a spoon here. And I do have a spoon out here. I just have to find it. I found my spoon. It was in the other greenhouse. Knew it was around somewhere. So I'm going to try and spoon soil down in here. That's pretty good. I can put sphagnum moss in there to hold it all in place. Just looking around back here. I think I need something back here. There's some cool roots. I want those going down into the soil. So I'll put something back there. I've got those roots at the back going down actually inside here. And I piled up some soil to hold them all in place. Should work quite well. It will be kind of cool unveiling all this, the reveal eventually, when all those aerial roots have taken. It's going to be pretty amazing, I think. I'm going to give the planting a thorough watering, and then I'll add the sphagnum moss. So just get all this nicely soaked. I'm going to put the sphagnum moss all the way around just to hold all the soil in place until the roots get established. So here I go. I'll just kind of put it in there. I'll put some around this side over here too. Hold all that in place. Here's a look at the tree now. The work is all done for today. It looks more like a building out of a science fiction movie than a bonsai, but it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting to see how it does. I think it's really going to transform this tree, getting those aerial roots going into the ground, the new front. It's going to look awesome, I think. I'm really looking forward to developing this far into the future. An exciting transformation of my Australian umbrella tree, my large leaf Schefflera. And that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.